Joining me now is one of the senators who voted today to remove President Trump from office, Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Maybe I'll start with the speech of Senator Mitt Romney, because if I'm not mistaken, you were in the chamber when that was happening. What was going through your mind?
I had given my remarks just before Senator Romney, and in my remarks, I wondered aloud about what I would do if I was ever in Senator Romney's position. I hoped that if a president of my own party had committed the same kind of offense, sacrificing America's security for personal gain, that I would vote to remove them from office. But I admitted at the end of my speech that I wasn't sure, that I worried that the partisan temperature was just so high in Washington that we all have this temptation sometimes to think about party first and country second. And then coincidentally, I look across the chamber and there's Mitt getting ready to give his speech. And in some way, he provides an answer that it is still possible for senators of good conscience to put the nation before their partisan interests. And I think that that speech will stand up for centuries. I think Mitt made that speech because he knows he's already a figure of history. And he wants to know that 50 years from now or 100 years from now, that his grandkids and their kids will look back with pride on the entirety of his career. I think they will after today.
What do you make of the meaning of this impeachment trial now that it is closed? And I should say, you know, everyone suspected this would be the ending that it had. I don't think there were any illusions really about anyone. We've never removed a president through this mechanism in the history of the country. Nixon, of course, resigned when Republican senators told him they would vote against him. So what are you feeling and thinking about what happened over the last several weeks in America in this republic?
So if I want to put on rose-colored glasses in looking back over this impeachment process, I take two things from it. I don't think that this ultimately constrains President Trump's behavior. He's already dispatched Rudy Giuliani during the trial back to Ukraine to try to dig up dirt on his opponents. But it does set a much broader moral line in the sand. Donald Trump may only be around for another 9 months, and it does make clear that this kind of behavior isn't acceptable. Donald Trump may be an exceptional figure who just doesn't pay any attention to these conventional norms, but other presidents, Republicans and Democrats, do, and they will know what we did. Second, though I deeply object to the decisions of my Republican colleagues to render no consequences for the president's actions, the fact that they, or many of them, chose not to deny the facts of the case, I also think is important, because what this president is trying to do, what the Russians are trying to help him do, is to destroy any factual narrative that exists in American politics. And for people like Lamar Alexander and Rob Portman to say, I don't want to convict him, but I acknowledge what he did was wrong, and I acknowledge that the House managers made their case, it may be in service of rescuing the whole idea of objective truth. Maybe I'm being a little Pollyannish about this, but if I want to view this with those rose-colored glasses, that's how I look at it.
It's funny that you had that reaction. I had that reaction when Lamar Alexander put out his statement. That was sort of my reaction to it. I didn't have any anticipation that he would either vote for witnesses or vote to convict. But there is something deeply insanity-inducing about being told that, you know, the sky is orange and the 2 + 2 = 5 by the most powerful lawyers in the country on national television time after time after time. And just the basic, it's a low bar, but the basic stipulation that, like, yes, the facts are what they are and we all know what he was doing here.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, democracy rests on our ability to preserve the rule of law and our ability to come to some basic understanding as to what objective reality is. You know, when it comes to at least that latter charge, we live to fight another day. This president has made clear the rule of law doesn't apply to him, but maybe by drawing this line in the sand, we make it clear to future presidents that the rule of law is still going to stick around for the next president's term. So in those ways, I think we have done something important to try to preserve what I argue is still a very fragile, very delicate experiment in governance.
Final question. I want you to respond to criticism I've seen from some folks that this was a fool's errand, right? That impeaching the president was never going to result in his conviction, and that it occupied all this time, or it occupied the nation's attention, sometimes away from the president himself, who often, when he's the center of attention, does poorly politically. What do you say to people who are critics of this undertaking?
Well, again, I mean, I come back to this question about what the long-term consequences of our actions are here today. No, it's not going to change this president's behavior, and we all fear for what he's going to do to try to further manipulate the 2020 election. But it has set a line that I think is likely going to be noticed by future presidents. Yeah. The worry here is that this becomes the norm going forward. It's so easy to look around the Oval Office and see all of these tools at your disposal to try to make your political life easier and use them. But by doing what we have done here and getting Republican support in the end, we've reestablished that norm. And that, I think, has long-term benefit to the country.
Yeah, we should note that Andrew Johnson and certainly Bill Clinton, to a certain extent, weren't just like unshackled afterwards. In fact, it hung over them afterwards. Senator Chris Murphy, thank you very much. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.